The goddess is here. The goddess is here. The woman of Willendorf is here with us now. She's here, and she's also here and forever here in my heart. Let's talk about it. You've seen this image, the iconic image of the woman of Willendorf. Who was she? Let's get into it. I'm Dr. Megan Lorraine Debin, and I'm an art historian, and this is Arttrippin Lecture Series. Hi, I'm Dr. Megan Lorraine Debin, and this is Arttrippin. The nude woman of Willendorf, sometimes called the Venus of Willendorf, is a small sculpture about 4¼ inches that was found in Willendorf, Austria, and is now housed in the Natural History Museum, which is basically a science museum in Vienna, Austria. Who is this woman of Willendorf? First of all, why do we see her called the Venus of Willendorf? Well, calling her the Venus is definitely a misnomer because this sculpture dates to about 28,000, maybe 25,000 BCE, also known as a long-ass time ago. Tens of thousands of years before the concept, the Western concept of Venus, the Greek goddess Aphrodite, and of course the Roman Latin term is Venus. This goddess as a concept, as a goddess of love and romance and beauty, is something that comes much later, and this is a concept that like modern 20th century men, like art historians, projected onto this ancient statue. So really Venus is a misnomer. This idea that this is a goddess of love and that she is like a prototype for the Venus statues that we see in ancient Greece and Rome is something that's reinforced when you go to the Science Museum in Vienna, because it's a museum with like rocks and fossils and all of this kind of stuff. And then you walk into this one area and there's a little fake doorway that's like a replica. It's not really an accurate replica, but in the style of a Greek temple, and it literally says Venus. So this idea that this is a goddess of love is something that's definitely a misnomer, but it's reinforced through the display practices of the Science Museum in Vienna, Austria. This little sculpture depicts what appears to be a biological woman. We see a big round belly, exaggeratedly large breasts, small arms that are sort of sitting on the breasts. In the center, in the belly, there's a little hole, and that hole was actually there before any human carved this sculpture into this rock. You also see a little triangular area for the genitalia, large buttocks, thick thighs, and then it sort of tapers off at the end. We don't see any feet. We don't get any sense of a face, eyes, mouth, anything like that. Perhaps some kind of woven hat or a braided hairstyle is depicted in place of the face. Now, this sculpture is a freestanding sculpture. It's a sculpture in the round, so you're meant to see it from all different sides. And you can imagine something this small would have been portable. It would have been something that you could have held in your hand and carried it with you. There are some elements on the sculpture that are relief. So that means they're sort of carved into the object. I would say perhaps like the area of the head, we have a kind of relief, a texture of either a hairstyle or a hat or something like this. This is relief sculpture. Now, when we look around this sculpture from all sides, and I have been so lucky to visit this sculpture in the museum in Vienna, Austria, and you're able to walk around it and see it from all sides, you really get a sense of like, this object is so tiny. Nothing like this giant fun candle that I have. It's tiny. It really would fit in the palm of your hand. Now, what do we see when we look at it? Of course, we see this kind of stylized depiction of the female gendered body. And this is not the only one. This is a very famous version of this, but this image, a similar type of image where we see an emphasis on the roundness and the voluptuousness of the female body, especially large breasts, birthing hips, details of the vulva, and the absent face. This trope is seen over and over and over again in Paleolithic art. This stylized sculptures of women, nude women, are very common in the Paleolithic era. And they were found not just in Austria, but all around Europe and other parts of the world as well. Here's another example. This is a woman holding a bison horn from La Selle, France, dated to a similar time period, 25,000 to 20,000 BCE. And this is a relief sculpture that's carved onto a flat piece of limestone. This is one of the earliest known relief sculptures. And again, here we see a de-emphasis on the face. So this is likely not a portrait, and an emphasis on the breasts, the wide hips, the belly. This figure even appears to have a hand on the belly, a common pose for pregnant women. And then she's also holding a bison horn. On the bison horn, we see 13 little lines, 13 notches. These might refer to the 13 months of the lunar year, and it may thus be associated with the cycle of the moon, and perhaps associated with menstruation, and perhaps fertility. So many scholars read objects like the woman with the bison horn or the Woman of Willendorf as symbols of fertility. Is this actually what this statue stands for? The truth is, we don't know for sure. These are educated guesses that we're making based on some of the imagery that we've seen. But of course, this could be all wrong. This is speculation. Remember, we're in the prehistoric period. We don't have any written documentation, and we don't have any kind of oral tradition that survives from, 30,000 years ago. So what does this image mean? Perhaps this is some kind of symbol of fertility. Perhaps this is used in some kind of ritual related to fertility. Maybe this is something that when you want to create a child with someone, you give them an object like this. Perhaps this is an object that women would pass down to their daughters when they were of childbearing age. Maybe this is something that you hold in your hand when you're pregnant or going through childbirth to help ease the pain. But again, this is mere speculation. The truth is that we don't really know the purpose of these objects, but there are so many of them. This is not a unique object in the Paleolithic era. It's actually quite common. The fact that most of them are really quite small, just a few inches, indicates that it's really kind of a portable object. It's something that you could carry around with you. You could keep it in your hand or keep it in a small bag or pocket and bring it with you as you're moving around, living your nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle, which is typical of the Paleolithic era. While many scholars believe that this object has something to do with fertility, some scholars think this might be an actual depiction of a fertility goddess. Whether or not that's true, we may never know. I think it definitely had some kind of ritual purpose. It was something that you would hold in your hand and that you maybe would believe that it had some power that related to your ability to procreate. And the reason we think this is because of the emphasis on the large breasts and the large stomach. In contrast, it could have nothing to do with fertility. It could be more generally about abundance, about having the extra food, to have some extra weight on your body, to give you some strength and an extra layer of fat to keep you warm on a cold prehistoric night. Who knows? The truth is we really don't know. But these are some of the theories. I had a student one time who I thought this was a really brilliant idea, that they noticed that since it's quite small, it's something that you could hold in your hand, and this head, the top of the head has this kind of unusual patterning on it. They said it reminded them of a mortar and pestle, and perhaps this is something that you would use to grind herbs that would help women when they are going through childbirth. There are certain herbs that you could use to help ease some of the pain or some of the difficult symptoms of childbirth. And I thought this was a really interesting idea, and it could be true. We do have evidence of people cooking using a mortar and pestle all the way back in the Stone Age, all the way back in the prehistoric era. So this could be true. This was an idea that a student of mine had one time, and I thought it was very interesting. But what do you think? How do you think this was used? Was this a goddess? Was this a depiction of a real woman? Was it a concept, an idea like fertility? Or did it have nothing to do with reproduction at all? Was it about sex? Was it about food? Two of my favorite things. Let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to follow us at arttrippin on YouTube and TikTok. And if you want to know more about prehistoric art and architecture, stay tuned to the next video in this series, in which we will discuss the Neolithic era. As always, I'm Dr. Debin, and this has been Art Trippin'.